Welcome back to another episode of the Boro4Boro podcast, where we take a bite out of the Big Apple real estate scene. We're back here for episode 2 of season 2, and we have an extra special guest today, Kevin C. Riley, city councilman from District 12, my home district in the Northeast Bronx.
Clap it up, man.
Clap it up. But I'm here with my amazing co-host,
Scottie Cabrera.
Traci Byers.
Isaiah Ajala.
and we are going to go today into probably, I would say, the most hotly debated thing in all of real estate, City of Yes. So for those at home who don't know what City of Yes is, by the end of this episode, you're going to be pretty much the most knowledgeable person in your family about it and go tell everybody why it's a good thing. But Kevin C. Riley, talk to us about, one, who is Kevin C. Riley, and how did you even become a city councilman? Because I don't think I know that many city councilmen.
So first and foremost, thank you so much for inviting me on this platform, important platform, where we're focused on giving information, the right information out to our community. So I really, truly appreciate it. And who is Kevin C. Riley? That is a very dense question, but I'll give it to you in the short. I'm a public servant. I've been a public servant since my first job, which was working at the public library, to my occupation prior to me becoming a councilman, which was working for the New York State Assembly Speaker Carly Hastie, and kind of get into the government space. And people always say, hey, did you grow up in a house that was focused on politics? And I often used to tell people no, but then ideally, yes, I did, because of certain policies and situations kind of shaped the way that I was raised. I'm very vocal about speaking about, my father and the criminal justice system that affected my family, which transitioned me into different public, partnerships with people within my district that were attending civic groups, community groups that helped the evolution of me becoming the man I am today. I started my profession in politics in 2008 as an intern. Jonathan Hicks, who's my fraternity brother, I'm a brother of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, and he introduced me to Speaker Hastie when he was just an assembly member at that time, and Ruben Diaz Jr., who was the former Bronx Borough president. And they were making the decision at that time to run for their positions. And as they ran for their position, I was just at the table, and I'm just like, yo, I like these dudes, man. They cool. I could relate to them, and I started the intern in 2008. And then as I was doing my internship and I got a full-time job when I graduated in 2010, I was actually going to leave politics and kind of go into a different profession, which was lobbying. But Carl said something and really poured into me. And he said, hey, man, I think you're a great leader. I think you could lead your district as an elected official. And I'm like, there's no way. You know what I mean? Like with the trajectory of my my father and where I thought I was going within my lifeline. Matt, I went to Mount St. Michael, even though you went to Stepinac, it's all good.
Crusaders on top right now. Check it out.
But just really understanding, like, my evolution within politics and just being a public servant. And I ran for office during COVID-19 pandemic. So in 2020, there was a special election. I had to put together a campaign 14 days before Christmas. So as people were getting Christmas gifts and as it was snowing, I'm knocking on doors, trying to get petition signatures, trying to get, elected into office. And I was elected, and my first day was actually January 6, 2021, which was a very crazy day in Washington, D.C.
American history.
But I've been in politics. I've been in this role for the last 4 years, my fourth year in office, chair of zoning and franchise, which is a very important committee in the city council, which is kind of different because state elected officials don't have that much influence over land use projects within the city. So actually going from, working from a state elected official or legislator to actually, being a part of the land use team and being the chair of zoning and franchise was really remarkable for me.
That's amazing. I mean, I'm proud of you. That's a thank you, for real, man. Thank you, man. So City of Yes. So, I mean, I'm sure when you look at the news, I'm sure the conversations that you have with people, it's a very divisive topic because I think with most things, people don't know exactly what it means. It says yes in the name, but for those at home who don't even know what it means, what is City of Yes?
So the City of Yes was the mayor's proposal to address 3 specific needs. So the first proposal was carbon neutrality, which we were able to pass in December of 2023. Which was focused on how we're going to convert, New York City to be, with our climate goals. We all know that carbon neutrality, lowering the emission, having green spaces, these are things that we're talking about within our climate right now. So that was the mayor's first iteration of that proposal of City of Yes. The next one was economic opportunities, which we passed of June of last year in 2024. That one was kind of, open up the floodgates for economic opportunities as we live in a society now where people traditionally want to work close to home. We have more entrepreneurship than we ever had before. So just kind of focus on how we can make sure that small businesses have the resources to actually provide the services within our community and give people the opportunity to get economic opportunity where they live is really important. And the last one, which was the most challenging one, was City of Yes housing opportunity, which we just passed December of last year, which focused on changing outdated zoning laws that prevented us from producing more housing. Within New York City, we have roughly 8.1 million people in our population, and that number is growing rapidly.
Sure.
A lot of people are leaving the city, but a lot more people are coming in the city as well. We have a demand that is extremely high, but we have supply that's extremely low. So the City of Yes was an opportunity for the mayor to put together a plan. At first, they wanted to build, I believe, over 100,000 units of housing. But of course, with tons and tons of community output, outreach, my hearing, which was 14.5 hours.
Wow.
Which was
That's got to be the longest ever.
Yeah, I believe it is the longest in city council history. But we wanted to make sure that we got as much feedback from the city as possible and communities as possible. So it's been consolidated to 82,000 units of housing. And it's an opportunity to address our issue of affordable housing or housing opportunities within New York City, or even home ownership. We understand that we're trying to keep as much people in New York City as possible, and this was the mayor's opportunity of presenting a plan. The city council kind of combated that plan with the City for All, where we wanted to focus on investments. We were able to commit $5 billion in investments. Those investments go into services, go into staffing, goes into infrastructure. I was very big on infrastructure. Adding housing is dope, but you can't add this new building on this block and you didn't fix a school. In a long period of time, or you didn't upgrade a park or upgrade a library, or the streets are messed up. And then you're adding more toilets in a specific area. So how are we making sure that we're fixing the infrastructure? My district, our district, we're built around ponds, lakes, and rivers. So when it rains, we usually get an influx of a lot of flooding for homeowners. And if I'm trying to preserve home ownership within our district, we have to provide resources for them. So we advocated and leverage our position because we had to pass the City of Yes through the council and make sure that we advocate for $5 billion for those investments.
Wow.
Nice, man. Wow.
So just touching on that, right, on the infrastructure. I know large parts of Brooklyn and even like the Bronx, you said, they don't really have a subway line or transit system. How does the City of Yes combat that, and how would it combat transportation?
So focusing on one of the points for the City of Yes was transit-oriented districts, TODs. So building residential affordable housing around those districts. So you have a lot of districts that are adjacent to transportation. So if you're thinking about our district in the Northeast Bronx by White Plains Road, it's adjacent to an elevated train station. But if you think of the totality of the Northeast Bronx, we're still a transit desert area. We don't have a lot of transportation that we can rely on. The train system, you're from the area. The 5 train hasn't been working, and God knows how long.
They're always working on that train.
Sometimes on the weekends, we have to use the shuttle bus to go from Dyer Avenue to East 180. Now, if you're somebody that has to, work in the city, if you're somebody that has to travel to the city, that's really challenging for you. So how are we able to address that? So if you're building more, you want to make sure that you're building more around transit-oriented districts. So that's how the City of Yes addresses that. But also talking to different communities, how are we making sure that we're improving bus routes? How are we making sure that we're improving the train system? Train system is a hot topic. A lot of people are afraid to ride the trains. A lot of people are afraid to utilize the trains. And the trains sometimes don't operate, fast enough and adequate enough. In our district, we were able to get the Bronx Metro North.
Nice.
which
Yeah.
is going to be amazing. We're going to have 4 new Metro North stops in the Bronx that is going to take you from the Bronx all the way to the city in less than 30 minutes.
Yep.
That is going to be very impactful.
Yeah.
So having these conversations, and really during this process where DCP, the Department of City Planning, was doing outreach to community boards, civic groups, utilizing elected officials' offices, they were getting feedback from the community, and transportation was a huge issue. So we have the ferry system. How are we making sure that we're giving access to the ferry system?
Right.
So I think it's just thinking outside the box. And no, the city of Yes doesn't even fulfill or fully address the housing issue that we have. It's just kind of a step towards that direction. It's just like if you're trying to lose weight, you know what I mean? You have to work out in the gym, you have to change your diet, you know what I mean? You have to make sure that you're surrounding yourself in a healthy environment, you have to get enough sleep. So there's so much different things you will have to do to address the issue. This was just one of the things to address that issue.
Okay.
Nice.
And so just to clarify, there isn't no chance of them extending any subway lines to like.
Well, they are in Harlem, the Q line.
Yeah, I think they are in specific spaces within the district. But in totality, it's like I said, it's just something to address it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not something that's fully going to address the huge issue. You have a lot of areas in Queens that is hard for them to get to the city or to get to the Bronx. There's not even a train station. I would love to see a train station that takes you from the Bronx to Queens.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, my district, I live right there by Southeast Queens. If I drive to Southeast Queens, it takes me about 14 to 20 minutes. But if I have to take the train to Southeast Queens, Jesus, it's going to take me about 2 hours.
And that's not even talking about if you're trying to get to an airport.
Yeah.
You know, it's basically impossible on the metro to be able to do that.
And you have to use a cab, and cabs are extremely expensive
And
these
also
days.
from Queens to Harlem, it's actually not a easy
Yeah.
route too. You have to go downtown to go over.
Yeah. So I think moving forward, and that takes all levels of government actually working together. Federal government giving us, some more capital improvement projects, expanding access to different affordable ways that people could actually ride the train. So when we're asking people for like Metro cards and being able to convert them after you utilize them and be able to use them and transfer them to another form of transportation without, having to pay again. That's important. So it's just different ways you have to think about addressing the transportation issue and be creative about it.
Let me ask you, what does the success of the City of Yes look like 5 years down the road from now?
So the idea is supposed to be 15 years down the line. It's supposed to add 82,000 units of housing. I think the success we could start using, seeing like office conversions.
Okay.
We see like office spaces in New York City not being utilized. So how we're going to be converting them to residential.
Okay.
So in the next 5 years, being that the infrastructure is already there, it's just kind of doing the construction inside, seeing more housing being built and seeing less people in the shelter system and off the street. I think that's what we deem as success.
Right.
But we also advocate for neighborhood plans. So I know I have a neighborhood plan in my district where you're bringing the community together, you're bringing different stakeholders together, businesses, to figure out how we can improve housing in the community and also economic opportunities in the community as well. So my hope is the City of Yes was something that kind of alerted people in the community like, hey, we have an issue with housing. And now it's your opportunity to go get involved with your community board, check in with your elected official. If you see adjacent spaces, in your community, talk to your elected officials. Let's be creative. Let's be innovative. Let's work with good developers out there. There are tons of good developers out there. The same way there are tons of bad developers out there. But there are developers that really, really want to help uplift and build New York City. So let's make sure that we're working with them.
All right.
Yeah. So just to pick you up on that, right? Because I know you said converting office spaces into housing. Would that be the same as like mixed use property?
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
So mixed use property, commercial property, town centers. You have to be kind of creative on how you're going to address the housing shortage that we have. We're literally walking by buildings each day that haven't been utilized. We are living in a space right now where technology is really taking over the economy. That's where the economy is going. We don't have to physically be around each other all the time to meet. We don't physically have to be around each other to be a successful business. So mixed use development is something that's really important when you're kind of utilizing development. Of course, you're going to have affordable housing, but you want to have people in there that's making market rate as well.
Yeah.
So you're having a mixed use of crowd and people that can actually fellowship and grow a diverse, community and living structure.
Right.
We live in New York City; it's a diverse city. So we
yeah.
have to make sure the living structures that we're building is diverse as well.
Yeah, I
Makes
think that
sense.
would be really important, actually. I mean, from what I see in Brooklyn, a lot of businesses are going out of business, and utilizing that space for residential housing would be good, because right now it don't look good seeing shutters down and
Yeah.
you're walking
It's
down
not
the high street.
welcoming.
Yeah,
People loiter there. It looks abandoned. It doesn't look welcoming. You want to live in a community that's very welcoming. I
Right.
mean, you talk about Co-op City.
Right.
Yep.
Co-op City is probably one of the communities that I love the most.
Right.
It's the largest, Newark, naturally retirement community in the nation.
Right.
When you have a community, it used to be an amusement park.
Right.
I don't think I knew that.
Funland, something like that. Right?
Freedom Land.
Freedom Land.
What,
So it used to
Co-op
be
City?
Co-op City.
Co-op
It was a
City
swamp.
used to be an amusement park.
Yeah?
So they
Okay, I knew
back
that.
in the day, I think in the late
Freedom.
60s, they don't quote me on the date. 'Cause I know my cooperatives out there. Going,
How you don't know this, Kevin?
How you don't know this? But that time they converted it into affordable home ownership opportunities. And if
Yeah.
you're looking at home ownership, like we're all relatively young. When we were growing up, the American dream, quote unquote, was getting the white picket fence, the big house. You're actually seeing that American dream transition now. A lot of people don't want the big house,
Right.
white picket fence.
Right.
Nobody wants to
Condo,
wake
co-op,
up
right.
and shovel their
Right.
their
Yeah,
driveway. They want to live in a building with amenities.
Right.
Yeah.
They want to live in a building that has programs, affordable childcare in it. So you have to be kind of creative on the different type of families that you're welcoming in.
Sure.
So when you're thinking about that and what you asked about mixed use,
Yeah.
that's how we kind of have to have that mindset when we're trying to build these small communities there.
yeah. Okay.
And also for the community, how involved is it for the developers to make sure that they're including the community and the involvement in the infrastructure?
I think it's important for developers to start early with the community. I mean, when I tell you this, when I came into this space as a principal now for my own office, everyone was telling me, stay away from developers, don't accept anything from developers, this and that. And I kind of was taken back because I'm like, hey, we have to kind of work together
Right.
if we're kind of addressing the issue. And like I said, there's good and bad in everything. That doesn't stop you from actually doing the work because we got into these positions to actually produce for our communities. So I think it's really important. And I'm seeing that now. You're having developers engaging with communities at an early state where they're able to connect with them, they're able to educate them. Because I'll tell you this, and I told you guys before I got here, even as an elected official, I don't know everything. I don't know a lot, and I lean on the professionals in those specific areas to educate me so I could get the information back to my community. So we have amazing developers out there that go into community board meetings, go into civic groups, connecting with our office to partner for small things. If it's a book bag giveaway or for a community conversation where we're educating the community on what are the needs of New York City and how the process for developing goes, giving out jobs. Like, I think it's important for developers to connect with communities and let them know and listen to them. Like, they might not want that 26-story building, but they might can negotiate for 13 stories.
Right.
And within that 13 stories, they might want to see a commercial overlay where you're giving a service for the community, whether that's a health clinic or early childhood development center. I think these are the conversations that communities want to know. And when you have the conversation with these developers, you feel like you could trust them.
Right.
You feel like they're part of the community and actually trying to address the issue.
Yeah, so for instance, in Harlem on 145th Street, you have the 145 project, and all of Harlem is pretty much flat until you get to 125th Street, where you do start to see the new devs coming up, and you start to see commercial spaces like Sephora, Target. So they're specifically targeting that area and bringing more housing. And then on 145th Street, you have a lot of residents that live there now that are against it because of neighborhood change. But I think, what do you feel about that project?
I think it's fair because of gentrification. So when you see a community, and we'll talk about gentrification, I'm pretty sure you have a question about that. But it's a fair because you've seen your community change and you've seen people being priced out of your community.
Right.
So you feel like, all right, I don't deserve, or I think we're programmed to think that we don't deserve better with our community. We don't deserve our parks to be upgraded, our schools to be upgraded, for our roads better public transportation system. I think people are just afraid that once this development comes in, it's going to start pricing them out.
Right.
And this is why I say it's important for civic engagement, where you could kind of understand the process of a ULIP process, where they have 90 days, where they have to go to the community board, they have to go to the borough president, they have to go to the council member's office, then they have to go to the city council. But within that time, leverage. There's a importance of leveraging the opportunity, because you have to realize the developer wants the specific land. Right. You know what I mean? Like, they want this land, and they're not going to stop. A lot of them own it. They could do as of right, where they could build however they want to build, which could be a market rate, and have no form of affordability. Or you could go to your community and negotiate with them and say, hey, we're not for this project, but if you're going to build it, we don't want it to be 13 stories. We want it to be 9 stories. All right, 9 stories is too short. That's when you negotiate.
Right.
You got to 11. We want to see different type of programming. If you're going to invest in there, we want you to invest into the sidewalk. A lot of sidewalks are messed up where people can't even walk on them. We have a lot of communities that are asking developers to invest into the train station, even how it's set up. So I think it's the time for communities to negotiate and leverage. I know a lot of them in that area, because I was a part of that the last time it was disapproved. And they were talking about turning that into a truck depot or something like that, which is going to be by far worse in the community when you think of congestion in that area, where you have people of color who deal with high asthma rates, who deal with cancer. You know what I mean? Like, you want to make sure that you're providing something for them. So what I would say in that community, I'm not shoving this development down anyone's throat, but what I would say is be a part of those conversations. Don't be easy on the developer. Give them challenge them. Challenge them to deliver for your community, because I think that's what's missing and that's what's important.
Absolutely.
So I know you said that it's they have the right to build whatever they want, right?
Yeah.
So what's the incentive that, let's say, the council or the government is giving these developers to take on a project, like, let's say, putting something in the community for them? Like,
so I've learned about a very good word that developers like, which is subsidies.
Right. Okay.
So a developer loves a subsidy. You get tax breaks. Right? I mean, you want to incentivize somebody to build within a specific area. And if you're going to incentivize, we have to have affordability. So you have the MIH program, the Mandatory Inclusionary Housing Program. You have option 1, 2, and I believe we're working on 3 right now, where you have to do deep affordability within the AMI, average medium income of a specific community. So I would say that is the incentive when they go for the subsidies and say, hey, we want to build this project. Because a lot of the developers, and what I learned about these individuals, very smart with the money, they want to make sure they're getting as much tax breaks as possible to keep as much money in their pocket and more money towards the project. So that's the incentive that HPD, the Housing Preservation Development, that's what they give out. So you have the ELA program. That's a program that helps with a lot of senior housing. MIH, how I discussed, and there's tons of different programs and subsidies that the city and state could give out to developers for building.
Got it.
Kevin came in here dropping gems.
Yeah, man.
I mean, I learned a lot. The same way he said he's always eager to learn. I learned a lot. I think this could be a great moment for us to just take a break. We'll get a word from our sponsor, Shovel & Mattress Factory, and then we're going to come back and we are going to have the conversation around gentrification. So you don't want to go anywhere. Make sure you come right back, and we'll go right back into that.
Cool.
Hi, we're Ron and Kara Shovelin, owners of Shovel & Mattress Factory.
For over 50 years, we've crafted 100% USA-made mattresses right behind our showroom. From custom sizes to chiropractor-approved options, we've got your perfect sleep solution. So check out our 5-star reviews or come visit our showroom.
What do you really need to know about buying or selling a home? First, it's serious business, and it's complicated. There's a lot of money on the table, and emotion too. You need an agent who knows the ropes. So, whether you're buying or selling your home, work with professionals who have a mastery of the craft.
All right, welcome back to Boro4Boro podcast. Before the break, we were just about to start everyone's favorite conversation in New York City about gentrification. Kevin is ready for it. He say he's ready.
Oh, man.
But it's not going to be as hard as you think, Kevin, because really, I'm sure with all this conversation around City of Yes, you naturally face a lot of opposition. I'm sure the opposition probably is from renters who feel like they're going to get pushed out because of gentrification. But I'm sure people who actually own homes in these areas probably are a bit confused as to how this is going to help them.
Yeah.
So what does that look like?
I mean, first you got to downpack gentrification real quick. And I'm like on the fence with gentrification because gentrification to me is pretty much upgrading the community. Investing in the community, putting buildings there, fixing up the park, fixing up the streets. Colonization is when you kind of take over a community and kind of push out those who lived in the community by making it not affordable. And I think that's everyone's biggest fear when you're adding these big developments, because normally within these communities, if you see a building that has been deteriorating for the last 15, 20 years, it becomes the norm. But then when that building, is getting broken down and you're building it with a nice, beautiful building that looks luxurious to you, you get afraid because now you feel like it's being priced out. You're being priced out. And I feel like, communities, that's why I'm very, ambitious. And I advocate for communities to be a part of the civic process to kind of understand what is coming within your community. So something as of right. As of right is pretty much a piece of land that you could build whatever you want as long as it fits the current zoning regulations. So if you're in a residential R4 and you have a piece of land and you want to keep it as an R4, you can build whatever you want. But if you want to convert it into like a R7, R8, and want to build a little bit up, or even want to do a commercial overlay, or even convert it into a manufacturing zone, you want to change that through zoning regulations. And that gives the community the opportunity to have a say-so. That gives the community the opportunity to give amendments. That gives the community the opportunity to have a voice. And usually when you have great elected officials or good elected officials that listen to you like myself, we're going to take that voice and we're going to make sure that we're pushing back and leveraging the opportunity. So to your question, when you said that, hey, so that's gentrification to me. I feel like gentrification is the improvement of a community, but I feel like colonization is when you kind of push the community out and you don't allow people to live there because it's not affordable anymore.
Sure.
Yeah. So now when you're talking about pushback when it comes to, zoning regulations or new zoning, a lot of times you get a mixture of pushback from renters because these are the renters who have seen, their rent go up. Being that there isn't a lot of, supply out there, or even when you have landlords that are taking advantage of them. But most importantly, in my district, I have a lot of homeowners. So you might get a lot of pushback in, places in Queens, Brooklyn, where you have a lot of homeowners that necessarily don't want to see a big building go up next to their home.
Yeah.
And you have to understand that because usually when you buy a home, that is about a, 30-year commitment, ideally. So if I bought my home in 2000, right, and I have that 30-year commitment, and now you want to knock down the place next to me and build like a 13-story building, that is something that I'm afraid of.
Right.
So just making sure you're listening to these homeowners that are pushing to make sure that their voices are being heard. I think that's really, really something that's important, and that's why you push them to be a part of the community board.
This beautiful set here at Studio 1873 is brought to you by the Everset. The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
Hi, it's Stephen Bailey from Roadway Moving and Storage. Listening to Vince Rocco, you know the right partner makes all the difference. At Roadway, we deliver an experience your clients will love. For specialized services and white glove care, choose Roadway. Want to learn more? Email me at steven@roadwaymoving.com or visit roadwaymoving.com.
So since you talked about different disparities, how will the initiative address disparities between the boroughs in terms of housing affordability and availability?
So it pretty much changes. So usually each project you have the specific area, you have that zoning project, and that takes 90 days to do the EULA project, right? So with the city of Yes, you're changing the zoning regulations. So you're in TODs, transit-oriented districts, which we talk about, town centers, which are pretty much living spaces above commercial real estate. You have ADUs, which I know is a very popular topic amongst homeowners. You got pushbacks. You got pushbacks, you got for it. this whole City of Yes plan was supposed to add housing throughout all 5 boroughs. Okay. Understand that everyone has to play their role. You can't overly saturate, communities with affordable housing complexes like the South Bronx and Councilmember Salamanca's district or Councilmember Stevens' district, where they have a ton of shelters, a ton of affordable housing projects. That's not making it diverse. They need some affordable homeownership projects as well. Absolutely. They need to invest in the homeowners that are already over there instead of forcing their hand and kind of pushing them out and not giving resources. That's why for the city, for first-time homeowners, we advocate for $41 million for the first-time homeowners opportunity, and we extended the AMIs to 120 to make it more moderate, which was important because usually those type of programs are only given to those who make a little bit less, and we wanted to make sure that we widen the gap, but also understanding that the Home Fix It 2.0 program, where you have these homeowners that have beautiful houses, but they have to preserve it. They might have a roof issue. They might have a sidewalk issue. These are issues that homeowners are seeking, and that small issue might change someone's idea of keeping their home. Sure. They might say, I can't afford it. They might get the lien on their house. They might get somebody who's predatory that's looking at this lien and wants to make sure that they buy the house and give them an extra $50,000 when their house costs way more than that. Right. So the whole idea, to answer your original question, Traci, is to make sure that affordability throughout New York City is there, but everyone's playing their role, and we're diversifying the housing structure by allowing affordable housing, but also taking care of those who are homeowners as well.
Yeah, nice. And while I think the City of Yes program is a commendable initiative, right? I do have a little pushback to that because in Flatbush, like East Flatbush, you have a lot of single-family homes and two-family homes that have 9, 10, even 13,000 square foot of air rights available, right? So what that's doing is houses in that neighborhood typically are about 800,000, 900,000. Developers are coming in and offering 1.5 to these residents. Now, for the regular individual that wants to buy a house in that neighborhood, they've already been outpriced, right? And then for the next door neighbor that wants to sell their house, they're not looking at 800,000. They're looking at 1.5, right? So now there's a disparity there because these investors or developers are coming in and they're building that 13 story building right next to a beautiful Victorian house. So I guess what are there any plans for like the first time home buyers moving into those neighborhoods or looking into those neighborhoods that are now being outpriced?
So I think with the investment of helping them actually get the opportunity, also allowing for legal services because what's going on with a lot of homeowners, they're taking advantage of. They might have a lien on their house. They might have somebody that's offering them $1.5 million. But I think education is really important. Information is really important as well. And to be honest, there's not a total the correct answer for that question. But I feel like a solution, or at least a small solution, is kind of educating, these homeowners. For instance, I have a neighbor who bought their home in the 90s. Their home was probably around $275,000. They had a corporation come from across, not in America, come here and purchase their home or try to purchase their home for 1.5. It's funny that you said that number because their home now is worth about $900,000 to $1 million. But I always say to them, if they're going to offer you, your house is worth $1 million, they offer you 1.5, something's wrong with that. You have to pay attention to where the trajectory of housing and the supply is going. It's just like buying a car. A lot of people are buying used cars now because buying a new car is expensive. So even if you have a used car, take into mind that your used car has more value than you think it has into it. The same way your house has more value because the supply is, really, really low. So I think, we have the home ownership legal assistance program where we advocate, I got to look at my notes, $25.6 million towards just to educate those homeowners on how they are supposed to be buying, homes. So I think that's something that's really important. And also making sure that we're providing tax exemptions as well for those who are going into the ADU programs. We don't want corporations to buy homes and turn them into like mini homes. That's something you don't want. But then you have a lot of family members who, I think family is very big for me. And I think having your family close by you is important. Absolutely. And when I think of growing up, even watching like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, where, you know, Will had that situation where it was detrimental to his family. And he had to move to, where did he move? To Hollywood, right?
Yes. Exactly.
From Philadelphia. And him moving to Hollywood was the opportunity for him to be around his family. And they had him in the house in like the beach houses. So that was something that was really, really important for them to do. So kind of understand that information, education. But when you're talking about the developer buying the house next door to you and knocking it down, if it is a 1-family, 2-family, that's probably because it's under a specific zoning. And usually 9 times out of 10, a developer's not going to knock down a 1-family home and just want to build within that zoning regulations. They're going to want to go up a little bit higher. And that gives you the leverage for them to go through the EULA process, go through the community board, and kind of have a voice from the community to kind of combat that.
So you're saying EULA project?
EULA. That is, I don't know the acronym for that right now, but that's the land review process that DCP, the Department of City Planning, does. And that gives about 90 days for a developer to speak to the community board, to speak to the Bronx Borough President, to speak to DCP, which is Department of City Planning, but most importantly, speak to the community.
Before
we vote on it. Before it comes to zoning and franchise, it has to go through that EULA process. And we're like the last step. It goes through zoning and franchise, then gets voted out of land use, and then the council votes on it, and that's when it's approved.
So are there any new projects or current projects that you're affiliated with that we should know about maybe or that you like to talk about?
So we just approved a project in Councilmember Hanif district, which was the Arnold Linen project, which is going to add roughly, I think, about 236 units. Parts of it is going to be affordable, which was very, very, challenging in that district because that district didn't want that project to be there. And that's because they had distrust with the person that owns the property. And that's one of the biggest issues. If you have somebody that owns a property that already has created distrust in that community, that's always going to make the project harder. It's always going to make the project more challenging. And even if...
Why?
Because you have somebody that owns the property and maybe they haven't maintained it in a while. Maybe they have bushes up, people are dumping in the area, and people have been complaining. And in good faith, you haven't done anything about it. But now you want to go through this EULA process because it's beneficial to you. Do you really care about this community? So that's where I think people have the distrust in a lot of developers or people that own these lands. So that's why when you asked that question earlier, what can developers do? Engage early. If you know you're going to do something with this specific area, make sure you're engaging the community, finding out what they want, letting them know your plans, being honest with them. And then everyone's going to come to the table with their own suggestions. So the important thing is we realize we're here for this community. We're trying to come to a median, a middle ground. And I think that's important.
Because it all comes back to trust at the end of the day. Right now, there's a lack of trust. New York City has so many different people. It's diverse in so many different ways, but the financial aspect of it has created distrust for so long that, someone in your position, you come into the middle of that, and the minute that the perception is that you're either being too friendly with a developer or you're not looking after the community, that trust, that disparity gap just widens. But at the end of the day, if this whole thing is supposed to be able to create more trust, to be able to create more opportunity, it's going to take time to be able to get that because it's quick to lose the trust, but it takes a long time to build it back.
It's so quick to lose trust. You can lose trust like this, but it takes so long to gain someone's trust. And I think that's important. And developers need to understand, but community needs to understand. It's this ecosystem of producing healthy communities, affordable housing in general, structures that you can help push a community forward, I think is really important if all of us understand that we're all stakeholders in this.
Right. So let's talk about, the future. Let's talk about this utopia that we're creating in New York, right? What does that look like in terms of 15 years? What do you envision New York City looks like if and when this is successful? Because I'm sure there's a lot of other cities around the country that are looking at New York and are like, all right, now that this is passed, this could be a good thing, but there's a lot of opportunity for it to sink. So in 15 years from now, if this thing, goes the way it's supposed to go, 82,000 units are developed. What do you think that looks like in terms of, are there new opportunities or are there new problems that potentially are coming up because of it?
Well, we're always going to have the problem of not building enough housing. Even 82,000 units of housing is not enough. So I think we have to even be even more creative on how we're building housing moving forward, or even allowing or preserving the housing that we have, because a lot of the issue is we have housing stock here, but we're not preserving it. Even the rent stabilized program has to be some form of conversion when you're thinking about legislative priorities. You have a lot of rent stabilized units that haven't been able to change the rents in some way, some years, which they shouldn't have. But there has to be some form of subsidies and breaks for those good landlords. We have to incentivize good landlords. And what I see in the next 15 years is us having more housing, but we're also figuring out creative ways to produce more housing. But I really want us to focus on home ownership. I feel like affordable housing is dope. It's a temporary solution.
Right.
But I think about affordable home ownership when you're able to hand something down to your family. One thing I want to stress is when you have a complex, a house, or a condo, if you have children like me, I have 3 beautiful children, the thing I want them to worry about least is the shelter that they have to live in, or the roof over their head. I think that was my biggest concern when I graduated college. Like, oh my gosh, where am I going to live? Even though my mother said, you're okay, Kev. Like, you stay right there. But you're thinking about that because you lived on campus for so long. You want your own space. And all of us thought about, like, where am I going to live? Where am I going to live? Where am I going to raise my family? And if we're building this structure where we can hand down affordable home ownership, that's where I want us to go towards. I want us to think about creative ways that we could preserve the homeowner. We have Mitchell-Lama programs within the city. We have, Co-op Cities one. We have a lot in my district. How are we making sure we're preserving them and keeping them affordable? So they're able to sell it to families like mine who want to stay here, or even pass it down to their families. How are we making sure that we're preserving those lots, those empty lots on those vacant blocks? Those blocks we see, a lot of us, you could go through Brooklyn, East Flatbush, you could go through the Bronx. You might see a residential block that has 1 to 3 multifamily homes there, but they might have that vacant lot there. Or you might have that one family home, which ideally, that's not what people are ideally buying right now, especially in a metropolitan area. They want to live in more of a multifamily type of situation. So how are we converting those one-family homes, if nobody's buying it, that's been on the housing stock for some time, into some form of multifamily? And how is the city providing resources and subsidies to do so? So I want to see more home ownership opportunities. I want us to talk about more home ownership before affordable home ownership. I think affordable housing is just something that's a catchphrase these days. But I really want to talk about affordable home ownership, allowing people to own something so they can actually be proud of where they live.
That's what we preach.
You're talking to 4 realtors. Yes, absolutely.
So I love that, right? Affordable home ownership. But I want to pull it back a little bit to like landlords.
Yes.
Right? Now, I think we've all come across landlords that have reused their home. So whether they've got a single family house and they're renting out the basement, or they've got a 2-family house and they're renting out 3 units in that space. Now, obviously they're doing that because living in New York City is expensive. So they're doing it for a little bit more income. What can we do to help landlords? And another thing is when most people think of landlords, they think of the big landlords, right? I'm talking about the mum and pop landlords, the guys that are going to work just to afford their portion of the mortgage. What can be done? I know we're going to talk about ADUs and legalizing basements and things of that nature. What can be done to help those guys? And can you actually speak about ADUs and the potential of like legalizing basements? I've been hearing about that for a while now.
Like, what is an ADU? I'm sure so.
An ADU is an accessory dwelling unit. So that could either be a basement, that could be an attic, that could be an attached unit to your home, or that could be a detached unit to your home. The city is providing resources and support. We advocated for within the $5 billion that we talked about. One of the allocations was $200,000 to increase market value newly created ADUs. We also gave 10-year tax exemption for eligible homeowners who could result up to $400 million per decade in property tax relief for accessible dwelling units as well. And just developing new resources to help homeowners who want to convert to ADUs. We added $5.7 million to that.
Nice.
So if you wanted to create your own ADU and don't know about going through the process, we gave some funding towards that.
Oh, yeah?
That can help someone out. But
So just on that, can residents start that process now?
Yeah,
Or-
yeah. Everything's adopted now, so you can start the process of reaching out to DCP, reaching out to your local members to kind of figure out how you could get access to that funding as well. But I think to answer your question is providing, if you think about the housing stock, one of the biggest housing stock is homeowners, small homeowners,
Right.
who may have had a 2-3 family unit and were able to rent out a unit. Like I said, no one's... 9 times out of 10, you're not buying a one-family home in New York City. If you want a one-family home, the white picket fence, you're probably moving to like Delaware or Connecticut
Or even
areas,
Long Island
or
or
even Long
Westchester.
Island or
Westchester,
Westchester.
yeah.
But in New York City now, there's more multifamilies there. We have a crisis though, because you do have homeowners who don't want to rent out these units because of the system that we have in New York City. If you look at the housing court system, it takes about, I think like 18 to 24 months
at least.
to evict somebody who hasn't been paying their rent. And these are small homeowners. These are people that purchased their homes. They want to rent out to people.
9 to 5 workers.
And 9 to 5 workers. My mother was one of them. My mother has been in several situations where she's covering the mortgage herself for months and months on to come, and she's not a horrible landlord. My mother's probably the best landlord I've ever seen because she caters to people's needs. She knows that you're going through hard times, and she'll pick up extra shifts just to make sure that the mortgage is paid and also that you are able to have somewhere to live. These are the type of homeowners I know I represent and that are out there. And I think if we're not protecting them by having an adequate housing court, by providing them the resources, by helping them with estate planning too as well. Estate planning is crucial when you're thinking about handing down your assets to your family, wills. And in the city council, we advocate for estate planning. Also, we advocate for deed theft information as well. I just passed a bill that will give information to homeowners and their heirs. When it comes to deed theft, when it comes to estate planning, things of that nature. So
What
we
bill
just
is that?
passed the bill. I forgot the number right now. I'll get you that
cool.
number. I'll
But
get you that
we're
number.
going to clap it up for that. That's dope.
I've had a lot in
That number.
Brooklyn, and
Yeah, I've been passing a lot of bills lately, so I'm a little fuzzy on that. But it was important that we did that because I think, Tracy, we were talking about this earlier, like, a lot of people don't understand, the estate planning aspect of purchasing a home. A lot of people just purchase the home and don't understand the property taxes aspect of it as well. So I think just kind of understand that and providing these resources was important.
And education, man. So, that's why we're here. We provide this platform to bring people like yourself on and share that information with everyone.
Infotainment.
Yeah,
Infotainment.
infotainment.
I love that. From entertainment to infotainment.
yeah. So I'm actually curious if you could build your dream neighborhood under the city of Yes, what would that look
It would
like?
look like Co-op City. That's simple.
What does Co-op
Except,
City look
except
like?
with more
For the viewers
access to
that
the
don't
subway.
know.
Yeah.
That's the only thing
So
that's missing.
that's the only thing that's missing for Co-op City is more access to the subway, more programming, a community center for the youth over there, or intergenerational community center, just like the YMCA that we have in the Northeast Bronx. But I would build a community within itself that people could, live and be sustainable. It would have amazing education system. It would have intergenerational connection where you have older people, older adults, and younger people connecting inside community centers, programs. It will have an area where people are able to shop, just like Co-op City. They have the Bay Plaza Mall, where they're able to work as well. It will have access to transportation, like you said, my brother. So I would think my ideal community under the city of Yes will look something like Co-op City, just adding a little bit more transportation and a little bit more programming in that area, and some more public safety as well.
You hear that? Isaiah? The ideal city is in the Bronx.
It's in the Bronx, man. We already have the Bronx.
That's from someone that lives in the Bronx.
And the bill was intro 901A. That was the bill that we did.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Well, look, this has been an amazing conversation.
Absolutely.
I learned probably more within this 40 to 45 minutes
Thank you.
that I've had it in a long time. So
I'm still
thank
learning.
you.
I tell you that. I'm still learning. I love this position. I love being chair of zoning and franchise. I'm learning from realtors, developers like yourselves. Like, I appreciate the opportunity to be here and speak to you guys.
Yeah, and where can people find you? Like, where they come to your office, knock the door?
Yeah, man, you come to my office. You know what I mean? I'm at 940 East Gun Hill Road.
Okay.
I'm at 135 Einstein Loop, room 44. I'm at 250 Broadway, where we have an office on the 17th floor. I'm as accessible as possible. You can hop in my DMs. Kevin C. Riley is my personal CM. Kevin C. Riley.
Kevin. Our show's getting hot. You gonna have a lot of people in your DMs.
Fine, man. That's fine.
Now that I think of it,
we gotta create a network.
Right.
You know what I mean? Your net worth is your network. So I really think I'm trying to enlarge my network. I'm trying to create more bridges for people like us that look like us. I'm happy that we're in these fields, man. And we're changing the trajectory. And we had to even get our younger people involved.
For sure.
I think why younger people within our community look at success, they look at people that are in the entertainment industry. They look at the athletes. We are doing it, man. We are in real estate. We are in politics. We are in government. We in public service. And we are really delivering. I think this is what needs to be attractive to our younger people.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. So what final message do you have to the viewers out there?
Participate in your community, man. Stay connected. Know what's going on. Stay civically engaged. I'm not that elected official that would just go out there and say vote, vote, vote. Get involved, man. There's different things going on, from the potholes that everyone's always preaching about online, from the technology upgrades in your community. The tech space is going to be where the economy is going. So make sure you know who your elected officials are, who represents you, what they do. City elected officials do different things from the state. State does different things from the federal. Just educate yourself on what's going on. Judges are voted on in elections. You have the opportunity to utilize your voice and connect. The best way to do so is always find out where your community board is. They are the pillar of the community that could really answer a lot of questions, but really understand who represents you and make sure that they are representing you the way that you want them to represent you.
Nice, man.
Thank you, man. Man, that's a word.
Kevin.
Kevin C. Riley,
C.
District
Riley,
12, Northeast Bronx. Thank you so much for joining us today on this episode.
Congratulations on season 2.
Season 2.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And to that point, today is actually a big day for the podcast because for those of you at home, this is second episode of season 2, but this is actually the day of our season 2 launch party. So this is a first for the More Network, a first for our podcast. And we're here with, I might have to say, the first politician to be on the More Network.
Really?
This is the first one. This is the first one. So it started in the Bronx like everything else.
That's good, man.
We gotta have him back too.
We gotta have him back. Absolutely,
man. I mean, there's gonna be other stuff coming up. So
absolutely. But this has been another episode of the Boro4Boro podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow, do all of the things. Hit up our brother Kevin C. Riley. You can hit up us as well if you have any questions, and make sure that you check us out for the next episode.
Peace, everyone.